My name is Brian Marquardt. I am the SGS for Joint Force Headquarters, and I will be your MC for today's ceremony. On behalf of Major General Anthony Corelli, the Adjutant General and Presiding Officer for today's event, welcome to the 2020 Department of Military and Veterans Affairs Hall of Fame Induction Ceremony. Induction into the Hall of Fame is our department's highest honor. It recognizes the recipient's unique and outstanding contributions to the department and to the Pennsylvania National Guard. Before we introduce our 2020 inductees, we would like to welcome our prior Hall of Fame inductees who are in attendance today. Please hold all of your applause until the end. Major General Retired William Lynch, former Adjutant General of Pennsylvania and 2008 inductee with his wife, Kathleen. Dr. Rory Cooper, currently serving as civilian aide to the Secretary of the Army for Western Pennsylvania and 2010 inductee with his wife, Rose Marie. And Mrs. Sandy Brenner, on behalf of her husband and 2019 inductee, Mr. John Brenner, with her son and former mayor of York, Pennsylvania, Mr. John Brenner, Jr. We are very excited to induct two new members into this year's Hall of Fame. Our first inductee, Major General Retired Robert French. He is currently serving as civilian aide to the Secretary of the Army for Central Pennsylvania. General French is joined by his wife, Dr. Elizabeth French, his son, Dr. Robert French II, his wife Cassandra, and their daughter, Aiden Elizabeth, and his son, Dr. Jonathan French, his wife Brianne, and their three children, Jonathan, Julia, and Jillian. At this time, if able, we ask General French and his family to please stand and be recognized. Our next inductee is Command Sergeant Major Christopher Kepner. He is nearing the end of a 40-year career and just returned home from his latest assignment as the Senior Enlisted Advisor to the Chief of the National Guard Bureau. Sergeant Major Kepner is joined by his mother, Roberta, his wife, Mary, his son, Sergeant First Class Josh Kepner of the Pennsylvania Army National Guard, his daughter, Gabrielle, and her husband, Chance, and his daughter, Chanel, her husband, John, and their three children, Brooklyn, Abel, and Aiden. And despite what you guys might read in the bio in the program, Sergeant Major Kepner actually has 9 grandchildren, with 1 on the way. Let's give him a hand, ladies and gentlemen. And if able, we do invite the Sergeant Major Kepner and his family to please stand and be recognized at this time. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, if able, we ask that you all please stand for the singing of the National Anthem by Sergeant Sean and Tana Sullivan of the Pennsylvania Army National Guard.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does
Thank you, Sergeants Tana and Sean Sullivan. Ladies and gentlemen, you may please be seated. Ladies and gentlemen, I am honored to introduce the Adjutant General of Pennsylvania, Major General Anthony Corelli.
Thank you, everyone. Good afternoon. I normally like to walk around. I'm going to stay behind the podium today because I'm going to keep my mask off, and we got to keep our distance. And we're doing this today with the COVID. Obviously, we've been living with this for a number of months now, and it's what a phenomenal experience over the last couple of months, and just with all the restrictions and all the devastation around Pennsylvania. We've had to cancel a number of things this year. Obviously, during the heat of the lockdown, a lot of training, a lot of drills were canceled. We sent a lot of our full-time forces home. We essentially canceled a lot of military training, other than our Combat Aviation Brigade, which was scheduled to deploy, and we were told fairly early on they will still deploy. So they were here essentially every single day through the worst of it to still prepare for their. But other than that, there was a lot of things that got canceled, and even still to this day, there's a lot of things, particularly public events, that we do cancel. But this one's just too important. I mean, I think I mentioned before at previous ceremonies that it doesn't get any better than this for us here at the department. This is our Super Bowl. This is our World Series. These are the best of the best of the best, and it's amazing throughout our history all of the incredible people that have helped this department accomplish its missions. The Guard missions, the Veterans missions, all the things that we do throughout the history of this great organization. But there are a select few that we put on our wall, and we kid about the wall, and anyone who's been in our headquarters, as you walk into the headquarters, you look to the left, and that's where all the pictures are. And you can look in the back of the program, and there's a list of the names of the people in the program. We're very proud of that. We're very proud of that wall. The people who really stood out in our history to help advance the objectives of this department. And today we have two new inductees. Okay, it's one of our biggest challenges because it is a very distinguished hall, it's a very select club. And one of our challenges every single year is to keep that bar set exactly where it is. We don't want to dilute that out. We want to make sure that it is only the best of the best. And I can tell you by firsthand experience sitting on the board and knowing that the two inductees that we're enshrining today, that we've maintained that standard, man, if not improved on it. So two phenomenally qualified people that have both dedicated their lives to this organization and have both really forwarded the advances of this department's objectives in Robert French and Chris Kepner. Both of them really still serving. As was mentioned, Chris Kepner still not quite retired yet, so we kidded him. He's still on the books, so he had to shave and he had to put his uniform on and he had to come in because we still got you for a couple of more weeks. If something else should arise, we know we can still snap you back into service. And of course, General French has been retired from the military side, but still contributes as a CASA, which was mentioned earlier as well. So just two phenomenal people. General French, I didn't have the pleasure of overlapping with him in my stay here at the headquarters. So while he was here at the headquarters and down at Pima, I was still out in the wings and didn't really work together with him closely on anything. But man, over the last couple of years since he became CASA, and I'll tell you, even before he became CASA, General French was not a stranger. And he frequently came around and asked for help. He was a supporter of some of the other satellite organizations and always came around asking if we needed assistance and any kind of help on anything. And then, wow, since he's become the CASA, he is a regular. He is very concerned, and we know he has the Secretary of the Army's ear, and it is great, sir, that you take so much attention in what we are doing and what our issues are and the things that we need the most, and we appreciate you communicating that back. So as you look through your phenomenal career, really three different careers, what you did as a guardsman, and then what you did as a state employee over at Pima, and now what you're doing now. So it's hard to categorize you in any one sense, and you'll get some more details on what these gentlemen have accomplished here in just a few minutes. And then Sergeant Major Kepner, I could say the same thing of him. We have overlapped some, obviously, and we've had a number of conversations. To get a 20-year career in the military and deploy and serve and make E9 and be a command sergeant major, even at a brigade level, I would call that an extreme honor and a fine accomplishment. But then to serve at the division level and be the division CSM, the oldest division in the entire Army. I mean, if you had to pick one, what other one would you want to be, right? And for anyone, that would be a highlight of an absolute career and something to brag about for the rest of your life. And then to move forward and be the command sergeant major of the entire United States Army Guard. Well, man, that's a very select list. Wow, that in itself is another huge accomplishment on its own. And if that wasn't enough, then become the senior enlisted leader of the entire National Guard. So again, you can stop at any one of those any one of those accomplishments and say, wow, that's an amazing career, and think that Chris served at every single one of those levels, and to look at what he did in those positions. It's not enough just to have that title, but to actually do the job and to actually forward the interests of the soldiers or our guardsmen, whatever the case might have been. And he certainly did that, and he did that every single day. I remember when we had our first tag meeting, it was very quickly after General Lengel had selected you, and we had a G-Slick, which was a meeting of all the tags. And just about every tag in the room didn't know who Chris was. And he was just appointed, and it was his first opportunity to get up in front of everyone. And he said, okay, I'm General Lengel's new CSM, and here's what I want to do to take care of our guardsmen. And he went on about a 10-minute speech about why it's important to do what we do, and it's why it's important to take care of our guardsmen. And I still remember it today. 8, 10, 12 guardsmen afterwards came up to me, and they had no idea who Chris Kepner was. And they're like, where did you get this guy? He's going to be great for the National Guard. And he was, and he did those same things every single day in his service. So two phenomenal people. Again, I want to thank both of the families, not even just for coming today, but both these gentlemen, you don't get to where they got by yourself. You need an entire support system. You need someone who's very understanding and who supports that career and understands how important these things are. And obviously these things do take a lot of time and a lot of effort. And there's a ton of missed birthdays and missed anniversaries and missed ball games with kids, and maybe even watching some of them being born and things like that. I mean, it happens. It happens in this career field. But both of these gentlemen have sacrificed that, and the families have paid that price. So I thank you all for supporting them, because they wouldn't be going where they are today. They wouldn't be going up on that wall if it wasn't for your support. I again thank everybody too for the protocols and wearing the mask and things like that. We actually had this plan when we first planned this, and again we wanted to make sure that we did this event. This was too important to have to cancel, so we had to figure out a way to get it done. And in the beginning, there were a lot more restrictions on indoor activities, so we were planning this outside over at Strickler Field. And as you saw when you walked in, it would not be a great day to be outside. So somebody was looking out for us. We were able to transition in. I want to thank the staff, Brian and his entire team. We're on plan like G right now. And many times we had to change this and try to figure out how we were going to get it done. And the whole time I had no concerns. I was like, you guys will get it done, and we'll just keep changing it, and we'll keep doing it. But on the day of, the families, the friends are all going to get to be here and see how much we appreciate the service of these two great men. So in advance of what's about to happen, congratulations to both of you. Thanks again to the families and everyone for coming, and of course to all our DVE. Senator Ward, great to see you again. I didn't see you before we started. And of course all of our previous Hall of Fame members, thank you so much for coming in. You make it very special just by showing up as we induct our new members. Thank you again, and back to you, Brian.
Thank you, sir. General French, Sergeant Major Kepner, before we formally induct both of you, you get to listen to me read for a while. So sit tight. It is now my pleasure to recite a greeting from Governor of Pennsylvania, the Honorable Tom W. Wolf. Major General French and Command Sergeant Major Kepner, it is my honor to recognize your tremendous military careers and induction into the Department of Military and Veterans Affairs Hall of Fame. Since the infancy of the United States, the fundamental rights of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness have been courageously protected by those serving in our armed forces. Pennsylvania takes great pride in honoring the men and women who have answered the call of duty and made tremendous sacrifices in the names of our rights and our freedoms. Your dedication to impacting individual soldiers and sharing your vast knowledge has helped strengthen the United States Army. There is no doubt that your legacies and induction into the Hall of Fame will continue to inspire others for generations to come. As Governor, and on behalf of all citizens of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, it is my privilege to welcome you into the Department of Military and Veterans Affairs Hall of Fame. Please accept my best wishes for continued success. Signed, Tom Wolf, Governor, October 29, 2020. And on behalf of the General Assembly of Pennsylvania, I am also honored to recite the Senate and House citations of congratulations to General French and Sergeant Major Kepner. Whereas General French and Sergeant Major Kepner are being honored today with their induction into the Department of Military and Veterans Affairs Hall of Fame for exceeding the normal expectations of their positions to provide selfless service to the Commonwealth. And whereas through many years of service to the department, they have demonstrated significant contributions to the status, operations, missions, and support of the department, the Pennsylvania National Guard, veterans, and their families. And therefore be it resolved that the Senate and the House of Representatives of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania pay tribute to Major General French and Command Sergeant Major Kepner upon this richly deserved recognition. States that they stand as role models worthy of emulation, that we recognize their loyalty and dedication to the Pennsylvania National Guard, the Department of Military and Veterans Affairs, the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, and the United States of America. And we congratulate them and extend best wishes for every future success and happiness. And be it further resolved that copies of the Senate and the House of Representatives citations for General French and Sergeant Major Kepner are sponsored by Senator Dave Arnold and Representative Russ Diamond. Further sponsored by Senator Judy Ward and Representative Jesse Topper, be transmitted to each recipient on October 29, 2020. Congratulations. Ladies and gentlemen, we will begin our Hall of Fame induction ceremony with the induction of Major General Robert French. We welcome his family, friends, and colleagues to move around freely and take pictures during the induction ceremony. Colonel Laura McHugh, the Joint Force Headquarters Chief of Staff, will now introduce General French and highlight his contributions.
Major General Corelli, general officers, members of the General Assembly, former inductees, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. First, let me say congratulations to both inductees. Both of you gentlemen are most deserving of this recognition. It's my distinct pleasure and privilege this afternoon to introduce to you the first of two inductees to the DMVA Hall of Fame, Major General Robert French. In preparing my remarks for the introduction, I was thinking of a few words that I could think of to describe General French. And the two words I came up with was servant leadership. And so what I did was I looked the definition up of servant leadership. And the key phrase that I took away was something that I think exemplifies exactly who General French is. Instead of the people working to serve the leader exists to serve the people. I'd like to say that one more time. Instead of the people working to serve the leader exists to serve the people. I can't think of a better way to describe you, General French. I've personally known General French for 21, 22 years, sir. I would refer to him as one of my most tenured mentors. I have personally witnessed his servant leadership through a number of roles that require the attention of a servant leader, either as a Deputy Adjutant General or the Pennsylvania Emergency Management Agency Director or the civilian aide to the Secretary of the Army. Major General French epitomizes what it means to me to be a servant leader. And so, sir, for the contributions to the soldiers, airmen, veterans, and the citizens of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, I say to you, sir, congratulations and well earned.
Thank you, Colonel McHugh. General Corelli and General French, please come forward. Ladies and gentlemen, General Corelli will now recognize General French with the Pennsylvania Meritorious Service Medal. At the call of attention to orders, it is customary for military personnel to stand at the position of attention. We invite all guests to stand with us if able. Attention to orders. Major General Robert French distinguished himself through meritorious service to the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania and the United States of America through 46 years of service as a retired Major General, PEMA Director, and civilian aide to the Secretary of the Army. His selfless service to the Guardsmen of Pennsylvania, their families, and our citizens is extraordinary. His service to others dating back to 1974 displays many characteristics that are exemplified by the soldiers, airmen, and civilian that represent the mission of the Commonwealth. General French's dedication and commitment to excellence are in keeping with the finest traditions of the Department of Military and Veterans Affairs and reflect great credit upon himself, the United States Army, the Pennsylvania National Guard, and the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. Signed, Anthony J. Corelli, Major General, the Adjutant General. Ladies and gentlemen, please be seated. On behalf of Governor Wolf, General Corelli will now present a copy of the governor's greeting that we recited earlier. Will Mr. Greg Moreland, Chief of Staff to Senator Arnold, please come forward to present the Senate and House citations to General French. General Corelli, you may be seated, sir. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm honored to present to you our first Hall of Fame inductee for 2020, Major General Robert French.
Thanks very much. Thank you all for that kind of round of applause. As for the chief, the first time I had a chance to meet Captain McHugh, she was about to lead her unit off on a deployment. And at the time, it was her first deployment as the leader, as the commander. And while in stature, she may appear to be a little bit shorter than most, there was absolutely the utmost respect from the members of her command because they knew what a great leader she was. And that was at the rank of captain. And so thank you, Colonel McHugh, for that kind introduction. Well, good afternoon, everyone. General Corelli, general officers, previous Hall of Fame inductee, our military members, our elected officials, our family, for Chris and I, and friends. First of all, congratulations to Sergeant Major Chris Kepner. He's been a caring, experienced leader, serving from the tactical level all the way up to the strategic levels, and he is a fellow 2nd of the 112th alumni. From the Frenches to the Kepners, congratulations to the Kepner family. I cannot fathom really being selected for this unique honor. It is the ultimate, yet most humbling experience that I've been involved with to date. Major General Corelli, I truly do appreciate the honor that's being bestowed here today. By the way, I just need to share with you folks how this came about for me, which was so wonderful as far as the way it worked. General Corelli and I had been in his office in a meeting, and as we had finished up and as we had done in the past, as we would get up to leave, he would always walk me to the door. And this particular day, he said, Rob, do you have a minute? Well, when the Adjutant General asks you if you have a minute, you obviously do, right? So he got his mask, and we started walking down the hall. And we walked down to the main entrance at the department where the photos are for the Hall of Fame that General Corelli mentioned. And when we stopped him and he pointed, he said, do you see that right down there, that space right down there? And he was pointing to where the pictures were. I'm thinking to myself, well, this is interesting, but I said, yes, sir, I do see that. He said, you know, that space is blank right now, but that's where your picture's going to be. And that's how I found out that I was going to be inducted into the hall. So, sir, what a terrific way to do that. If you can only imagine putting yourself in that position, how humbling it is. Well, it's commonly said that good things come in three, and I've certainly experienced it. First, it was an honor to serve in all three of the 28th Infantry Division maneuver brigades, the 2nd, the 55th, and the 56th. That was good. In my time in the Pennsylvania Army National Guard, it was enlightening for me to be able to serve in each of the three major components, the 28th Infantry Division, the 213th Area Support Group, and the Joint Force Headquarters. That was certainly good. And since 1972, as General Corelli has mentioned, I've had the benefit to serve in uniform as a military member, as the director of the Pennsylvania Emergency Management Agency, and now as a civilian aide to the Secretary of the Army. And that has definitely been good. Nearly 50 years ago, I would have never thought I would have been a soldier for life. But here we are today, and it's all been good. But I've been blessed to be a teammate with so many of you sitting out there today. Recently, Sergeant Major of the Army Grinston has initiated the This Is My Squad initiative. My squad has never let me down. And so 3 thank yous are in order. Thanks to the good Lord for walking ahead of me each step of the way. His light always lit the way, even when I got off the path. There is no one better to have walking point for you. Next, thanks to my family. My family has always stood behind me. My wife, Libby, has been there for me from the start of my career to today. Through deployments or day-to-day duty, my family has always had my back. This family sitting over here is the best rear guard that any soldier could have. And my 3rd thank you goes out to my military family for standing with me through it all. You have made easy things fun, and you have made difficult things doable. Thank you all. You have made us a winning squad. Now, somewhere along the line, we've all been taught that speakers should provide something of value to the audience in order to make the day worthwhile. So initially, I thought rules to live by might be a good thing to bring up. And Colin Powell had 13 rules to live by. But there were too many for me to remember, and so I used to carry his card in my pocket all the time. But then I learned that Denzel Washington had just 10 rules to live by. And later I learned that Warren Buffett had just 4. Well, in thinking about this, you guessed it, I boiled it down to just 3 rules to live by. First, keep it simple. Second, do your best every day. And third, treat others as you would like to be treated. First, KISS. It's an acronym that stands for Keep It Simple, Stupid. And that's where I first learned my first acronym in basic training. Be agile in the things that you do. No plan ever works the way you have it drawn up completely. Enjoy the moment that you're in. And remember, things are really never as bad as they seem. Second, do your best every day. Hone your skills, be a lifelong learner, embrace teaching moments, don't just blow them off. A little humility can be healthy. And know yourself and your limitations. Stay above the noise level. There are plenty of people, well-intended, who will get you off track. Third, treat others as you'd like to be treated. Reinforce the positive in others. Encourage them. Don't worry about getting recognition. You just do your best. And have a sense of humor. Not everything that you do has NATO impact. It's been my pleasure and privilege to serve with so many of you throughout my career. Let me close with repeating myself. Thank you, thank you, thank you for this extraordinary honor given to the French family team today. May God bless you all. If you'll indulge me for a moment, please be seated. I got to take care of my squad here for a moment.
Thank you, General French. Our next inductee, Command Sergeant Major Christopher Kepner. Again, we welcome family, friends, colleagues to move about freely during the induction ceremony to take pictures if needed. Command Sergeant Major Buchanan, the senior enlisted leader for the Pennsylvania National Guard, will now introduce and highlight contributions of Sergeant Major Kepner.
I've seen a lot of people do this on TV, so I wanted to do it. Sanitize. Major General Crowley, general officers, members of the General Assembly, Hall of Fame inductees, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. First of all, let me start out with what an honor it is for me to be here today to introduce a sergeant major that had a lot to do with my career. It was 2003 when he took over as a sergeant major for the 2nd of the 112th. I went to annual training, which was over in the ash pit here at Fort Indiantown Gap, and he'll remember this well. And I came to him with two things. Number one, Sergeant Major, I'm on a 1-year time frame. I'm really tired and ready to get out. I had been in 17 years, or 13 years. My wife was talking the whole 9 yards. I wanted to get out. And I told him he has a year to straighten this up or change my mind. The other thing that he came to me after that was said, Sergeant Major, that's a shame because, well, he was first sergeant at the time. I want to send you to the Sergeant Major's Academy. And I said, oh no, I don't want to go to the Sergeant Major's Academy. I was too involved with my family at the time. So I gave him a year. Things started looking really well. I started getting interested because of his leadership traits, the things that he was out to do for soldiers. At the time, soldiers, we'll carry on later on in his career to find out it was soldiers and airmen. But I really understood what leadership meant by just following him. And the second year he came to me and said, hey, I want you to go to Sergeant Major's Academy. And I said, okay. So because of you, Sergeant Major, I'm standing where I'm at today. I'm still in the military, and I made it to the rank of Sergeant Major. So thank you for that. A couple other things about Sergeant Major, and then we'll continue on with the program. Not only did he care about the soldiers and be the leader from the front, he marched several times and competed with another member in the audience, General Gronsky, on the March of the Fallen, the 28-mile March of the Fallen here held at Fort Indiantown Gap. And I'm really sure because you told me that you were the first one across the line every time. So I don't know if that's true or not. But he was also the reason why the Ranger Assessment Program started here in Pennsylvania, which gave our soldiers the opportunity to go and see what being a Ranger is all about before they sign the paper and get kicked out at the Rangers Academy. So I thank you for that, and I'm sure our soldiers thank you for that also. But then he moved on to the division, and he moved on to the Army National Guard Sergeant Major, and then eventually became the National Guard Sergeant Major, which is in a feat itself, like the Adjutant General had said earlier. So the whole time, Sergeant Major, you were a leader. You were in the front. People wanted to follow you. And I read a quote from the Army Sergeant Major, and I'm going to say this and then I'm finished here this afternoon. Don't be a feared leader. And I think you're familiar with this, because your soldiers won't come to you. If they're afraid of you, they won't come to you for mentorship. And being a feared leader is only your inability to be able to lead. And Sergeant Major, you never had any of that. You were not afraid to lead. You never led from the rear. You always led from the front. And I want to thank you for that.
Thank you, Sergeant Major Buchanan. General Crowley and Sergeant Major Kepner, please come forward. Ladies and gentlemen, General Crowley will now recognize Sergeant Major Kepner with the Pennsylvania Meritorious Service Medal. Once again, at the call to attention to orders, it is customary for military personnel to stand at the position of attention, and we invite all of our guests to stand with us to fable. Attention to orders. Command Sergeant Major Christopher Kepner distinguished himself through meritorious service to the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania and the United States Army with 40 years of service. His continuous influence and impact on Guardsmen was unparalleled. He was a tireless supporter for quality of life initiatives that supported soldiers and airmen of the National Guard. His sound judgment, foresight, and vision facilitated numerous initiatives and programs for both the Pennsylvania National Guard and Guardsmen across the nation. Sergeant Major Kepner's dedication and commitment to excellence are in keeping with the finest traditions of the Department of Military and Veterans Affairs and reflect great credit upon himself, the United States Army, the Pennsylvania National Guard, and the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. Signed, Anthony J. Crelly, Major General, the Adjutant General. Ladies and gentlemen, please be seated. General Crelly will now present a copy of the Governor's greeting on behalf of Governor Wolf. Will Senator Judy Ward please come forward to present the Senate and House citations to Sergeant Major Kepner. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm honored to present to you our next Hall of Fame inductee for 2020, Command Sergeant Major Christopher Kepner.
Thank you all very much. For the record, I did not win all of the road marches that I was on with General Gronsky. Not every one of those. And I also have to mention, too, I met Senator Ward for the first time in person this morning. And I had to remind her that, you know, during the height of the COVID business shutdowns and things like that, that was me that was emailing her about 3 times a week, asking what the legislature is going to do. And I don't know if you know this, ma'am, your office is right across the street from my wife's business in McConnellsburg. She has the grooming shop right across there. And don't worry, Representative Topper, he got the same emails as well, so you weren't out there by yourself. So thank you all for that. General French, congratulations. It's an honor to be inducted with you. However, I do have to say that of all the events that I've ever been to, my brother, Dr. Andrew Kepner, is not here today, and I think he would have fit in very well with your team over there. And I don't have any flowers for any of you all. I did not. But know that I appreciate everything. So, Senator Ward, General Corelli, Command Sergeant Major Buchanan, Chief Warrant Officer Bevins, General Officers and Senior Enlisted, and a special recognition to the former commanders and officers that I've had the privilege and the honor to work with throughout my military career. Previous inductees, friends and family, and especially Mom and my wife Mary. Thank you all for being here. And so my son the other day reminded me of a speech that I used to give when I was talking to soldiers, and I used to talk about the last 100 yards. And what the last 100 yards is it is the last distance before an objective where the only effective weapon system is a soldier and their individual weapon. Artillery's no good, close air support is no good, and it's an individual and their weapon that closes that 100 yards that can take an objective. And as I think about my career, I think today I am at about 99 yards and 2 feet. And after today, I think we'll close that last 100 yards. But as I was driving down here in the rain, and I'm a career infantryman, I could think of no better weather than what we have today, because that's the weather that seems like has been blessing me for the last 99 yards and 3 feet. So I think it's completely appropriate. Milton Friedman, who was the Nobel Prize-winning economist in the 60s, had a book called Capitalism and Freedom. And he had a quote in his book. And really what he was saying is that famous quote, not ask what you can do for your country, or ask not what your country can do for you, but ask what you can do for your country, wasn't the right question. He had a different perspective. And what he said was, the question that we should be asking is, what can good, free men and women accomplish through their government? And so as I talk today, I think my history is the history of really the Pennsylvania National Guard. And I'm going to talk about a couple of things that I have been privileged and honored to be able to be a part of, but really that good soldiers and good airmen have been able to accomplish together as the Pennsylvania National Guard. And I also want to talk specifically about the commanders that I've worked with throughout my career. You know, as an enlisted person and a command sergeant major, we are not out front. As goes the organization, goes the commander. And I remember when I was a young E5, I was about 20 years old, and I was in the first of the 504th. And so I was a young Sergeant E5. We had a company commander that was endeared to the men, a great company commander, fair, firm, great personality. And we got a second company commander that did not have the same personality. And I remember I was standing around with a couple of other sergeants, and we were complaining about the company commander. And the first sergeant called me over, and he said, "Kepner, come over here." And I went over and I stood at parade rest. And he said to me, you know, the last company commander that left this company left here with an OER where they'll walk on water with God. He said, and when this commander leaves this company, they will leave with an evaluation report where they can walk on water with God too. Do you know why? And I said, no, First Sergeant. He said, because that's our job. That is our job as a non-commissioned officer corps, and that has shaped me as a non-commissioned officer throughout the remainder of my career. And I never forgot that conversation about the First Sergeant, about what our role is, which is to help commanders achieve objectives, help commanders be successful, because I would argue there's no such thing as a bad commander in a great organization. There might be great people in the organization, but if the commander does not have a great reputation, they will not get the recognition that they deserve. So taking care of soldiers is also to help take care of commanders. So as I talk about that, please keep that in mind as a perspective that's helped shape me. So I'm going to start whenever I was a Stryker Battalion Command Sergeant Major, and we were the first Stryker Battalion, Stryker Brigade in the Pennsylvania National Guard that the National Guard had ever seen. And I remember our First Army counterparts, I remember hearing them having a conversation that said, there should not be such a thing as a Stryker Brigade in the National Guard. It's too hard. You all can't do that. And that was the non-commissioned officers who came off active duty in the First Army. Well, we did it. And the 56th Stryker Brigade went downrange. I was honored to be a part of that. And under Colonel Ferraro's leadership, the Stryker Brigade there earned a great reputation over in Iraq. So I appreciate your leadership there, sir. But I'll tell you this, my battalion was cut out to an active duty brigade. And I will tell you that we were one touchdown down in the eyes of the active duty brigade before the first kickoff. And that's just true. We would have brigade staff officers would ride by our battalion headquarters, take pictures of our strikers, and if there was an infraction and one wasn't parked right, they would send the picture to the brigade command sergeant major, who would then come down and send me these pictures and say, hey, you got strikers messed up in your motor pool, rather than walking in the front door of the battalion headquarters, which was right there, and said, hey, you know what, Sergeant Major, you got something you need to fix, and roger that. So we were one touchdown down. But here's what I will tell you. And it was shortly after we lost Chad Allen Edmondson when we were over there. The brigade sergeant major had a first sergeant's meeting. And all the first sergeants in the brigade were there. And I went to that. And First Sergeant Buchanan was there, and he was a first sergeant. And the brigade command sergeant major looked at all the other active duty battalion first sergeants. And then he looked at our first sergeants, and he said, you all need to be like these guys. They are still going after the enemy. They just lost a soldier a week ago. They're not staying on the fob, and you all need to do what they're doing. And by the time we left there, we had the respect because of our soldiers and our leadership in the battalion. As a brigade command sergeant major, I call this one of the great experiments. Whenever the leadership decided it was a good idea to take a career infantryman and put him in an aviation brigade. And I didn't know, and I remember I saw a lieutenant colonel whenever I was announced to be the aviation brigade, and you know, so I have jump wings and Pathfinder badge, and this lieutenant colonel looked at me and said, well, at least you've been around helicopters in your career. And I thought, this is going to be a high adventure. But I have to tell you something. I appreciate the leadership in the state that decided to make that move for a career infantryman and put me in the aviation brigade. That was the most enriching, rewarding assignment that shaped me as a senior leader of any assignment that I've had in my career. It took me out of my comfort zone and put me into a different scenario, and there, you cannot get the same results with an aviation mechanic necessarily by using the same leadership techniques that you use with an infantryman. And it made me adapt and understand and appreciate the complexities of that formation and other formations throughout the Army. So I owe a big piece of who I am for the people who took a risk on me and said, we're going to put this guy in the aviation brigade. As a division command sergeant major working with General Gronsky in the state, I'm very pleased to say that the state, we were able collectively and collaboratively to lower our NCO vacancy rate down to almost 5%, which at the time was the best that it had ever been. Collaborating with General Hilty and the Command Sergeant Majors Council and the Joint Force Headquarters and the J1s, we were able to accomplish senior leader management that had not been there before. And I appreciate your support on that committee, sir. Thank you very much. I was also able to see, the first time in the history of the Best Ranger competition, a proud warrior from the 28th Infantry Division winning that competition in the history, Staff Sergeant Friedman down there. So we were able to accomplish that. So even as a division command sergeant major, being able to accomplish those things with and collaborating with the team around me, I'm much appreciative for. At National Guard Bureau, we have started to look at FTA, Federal Tuition Assistance benefits, for our traditional Air National Guardsmen, which was not there before. The leadership in the Air National Guard, to their credit, has been able to take this on. We're sending airmen to U.S. Army Ranger School. And as a matter of fact, in the class in May, the enlisted honor graduate of the United States Army Ranger School was a traditional Air National Guardsman from Iowa. So we have great airmen out there too, as well, that are getting the job done, even in Ranger School. The senior enlisted leader development, we're providing opportunities, and that was working, of course, with the support of General Engel and the officers and the staff up at the National Guard Bureau and within the states to provide better development for our senior enlisted throughout the 54 states, to set them up to one day, I believe that we will have a guardsman as a combatant command senior enlisted leader. We are very, very close to doing that because we have great talent in the states as well. And so those are the things that when I look back on being able to accomplish, only because I was surrounded by great people. But it's not all without warts. And so I got to tell a couple of things, sir. Please don't etch my name off the wall when I get done with this one. But I got to tell you, so I was talking to a previous sergeant major of the Army, and we were having a great conversation, And he was like, man, I was an honor graduate of every NCOES I ever went to. I've never had an Article 15. I've never been. I said, brother, that ain't my story. I said, that ain't my story. I said, when I was in E3, I was arrested by CID. I said, and I was actually spent a couple of nights in a holding facility. And he said, Kepner, your behind was in jail. You can't make it sound good by calling it a holding facility. When I was in E6, 2 other staff sergeants and myself in the 10th Mountain Division decided that we would borrow another staff sergeant's POV to go downtown. We assumed that he gave us permission because he left his keys unsecured while he had duty. So we went downtown and we came back on post. And the MPs did what the MPs do, and they hit their lights and started to follow us. So I did what infantrymen always do when faced with the MPs. And I screamed, run! And we took off in the vehicle. And then I decided that was a bad idea, so I stopped it in the middle of the parade field and screamed, run again! And we all ran away. And you can imagine his surprise when he was on duty and got the call like, hey, we have your POV on the parade field at the middle of Fort Drum, New York. When I was in E7, I was a drop zone safety officer here in the Pennsylvania National Guard, and we were jumping whenever I was with the LRS. And the Division G3 at the time, their son was in the LRS, and his mother was on the drop zone, and he happened to crash his parachute into a tree and break his leg. And I remember the Division G3 called me down to Area 12 picnic area at the time, and he said, Sergeant First Class Kepner, you better make sure your stuff is right, or I will swoop out of the sky like a great bird, and I cannot finish the rest of the thing in company. But he would do things that are illegal to me in most states. When I was in E8, we were getting ready to go to Kosovo, and we had a brilliant young soldier that was savvy with social media at the time. This was back in 2003, and he had a site that he had set up. It was called the Daily Blue Falcon, and it was satire. And he took a picture of me one time. I was coming out of the DFAC, and he said, "Hey, First Sergeant." And I turned around and I did a particular salute with a finger. And anyway, he ended up and he cropped that picture into a presidential limousine with a crowd around it, put it on his website, and said, "First Sergeant Kepner greets the citizens of Kosovo." Well, it was that picture that the division commander and, oh my gosh, everybody found out about that. And, was I complicit? You're not going to the Sergeant Major's Academy. And it's like, let's take an appetite suppressant here. And yet I did not know about it, but that soldier should certainly not be. We should respect his irreverent sense of humor. Tell him that it's wrong, but right? And then whenever I was in E9, I was a traditional guardsman, and I was going to Carlisle Barracks to the War College to pick up some uniforms. And I pulled in, and they said, "Hey, please pull over here for a random vehicle check." And I'm like, "Yeah, sure." They said, "Open up the trunk, open up the console," and I said, "That's my loaded .45." They didn't take kindly to that. They had me. I was handcuffed. The MP. It was an exciting day for the MPs at Carlisle. The MPs were there. I was handcuffed. They searched my car. They figured out that I was not a threat, and they let me go. And I said, "What's going to happen now?" They said, "We are going to send a letter to your battalion commander, and it will be up to him to decide what to do." And it was kind of anticlimactical. I'm like, "That's it? You're going to send a letter to my battalion commander?" Called my battalion commander, and my battalion commander just shook his head. Anyway, I feel obligated that I have to say that your formations are full of Kepners, and you should be afraid. But you should also recognize that those mavericks that do make, and I take responsibility for everything that I've done, and I've paid for it, but those mavericks, right, they need controlled. But think about it, the next time you decide as a leader that, this person might be easier to just move them on, you might be talking to the next senior enlisted leader of the National Guard, the next Sergeant Major of the Army, or the next command senior enlisted leader for the state of Pennsylvania. So I would ask all of you senior leaders to consider that. T.R. Fehrenbach wrote a book called This Kind of War. And the quote that stuck with me, it was about the Korean War, and the quote that stuck with me most in that book was, and I'm paraphrasing, but you may fly over a country forever, and you may bomb it, and you may burn it. He said, but if you want to keep it and preserve it for the ages, you have to do it the way the Romans did it and put your soldiers in the mud. Pennsylvania National Guard has never been shy about putting their soldiers and their airmen in the mud. And that's evidenced by the rolls on the memorials of the lost and fallen warriors that have paid the last full measure in the Pennsylvania National Guard. Now remember, I was on Fox News with General Engel, and I wasn't supposed to say anything, and I was standing there, and General Engel was speaking, and Ainsley Earhart looked at me and she goes, so tell me, Sergeant Major, what's it like to serve? And this caught me off guard. This wasn't rehearsed. It wasn't, and I was like, mumble, honor, mumble, it caught me off guard. And as I was thinking about today, I realized today why I served. And that's for the men and the women who are in the mud. They're in the mud running COVID-19 test sites. They're in the mud doing sanitation in nursing homes. They're in the mud for civil unrest. They're in the mud in Afghanistan. They're in the mud in Iraq. They're in the mud in Djibouti. And they're in the mud all over the world. And they are preserving for the ages freedom. Freedom in Pennsylvania, freedom in our great nation, freedom for the world. Thank you all very much.
Thank you, Sergeant Major Kepner. Congratulations to General French and Sergeant Major Kepner. On behalf of the Adjutant General, thank you for taking the time to be here this afternoon. In the interest of safety for our inductees, their families, our guests, we will forego the customary receiving line. Instead, we invite General French, Sergeant Major Kepner, and their families to please stand one last time to be recognized. Ladies and gentlemen, this concludes the formal portion of our event today. Please join us for some light refreshments and snacks located to the rear of the room. Masks may be removed if eating or drinking, but we do ask our guests to maintain social distance throughout the reception area. Thank you very much for your attendance this afternoon, and we wish all of you safe travels home. Thank you.